Hey everyone, so thank you for having me here. My name's Ben Whyte. I'm the community manager at Etch. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit about, firstly, how I got into blockchain. How does one actually get to work in blockchain? And then secondly, about what Etch are actually doing to revolutionize payroll. So I'd say my first introduction to blockchain was initially doing my dissertation on the social implications of Bitcoin in 2013. And I was absolutely amazed by this technology and the future that it could potentially produce. But that was literally the tip of the iceberg. It was then doing this dissertation that I realized, oh my God, blockchain is a really transformative technology. That is what's building this amazing new decentralized future. This is where I need to go. I just need to head it off there. But being neither a software engineer nor an investor with millions of pounds at my fingertips to get involved early on, I had to do a bit of zigzagging to get my way there. So what did I do in that time? Now, I started up a couple of businesses, a digital marketing agency, 2 e-commerce businesses, worked for a few other startups, did a lot of networking in the blockchain space. That tends to help too. So it was around 2015 that I first went to the No Man meetup, run by a chap called Eros Evans, who's now my CEO. And believe it or not, he was even more impressed with and passionate about blockchain technology than I was. When I say that, I mean this guy was traveling to and from Wales to run meetup events in Shoreditch and rent out pool tables and buy people's beers to build this great big community, which is now nearly 1,000 people strong. And it's fantastic. If you're ever in London, come along. It's a huge melting pot of just great ideas, fantastic people, which has ultimately in 2017 has led to the creation of Etch. So what is Etch? Now, Etch is the world's first blockchain-based payroll system which uses smart contracts to stream wages and remittances in real time. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, why do we need this? What was wrong with payroll system as it stands? Now, for companies, firstly, payroll can be a very painful subject. It's time-consuming, it's costly, there's a huge administrative burden, there's all these compliance issues to get around. Some companies just outsource it, which again is very expensive. Overall, it's just a very archaic system that hasn't really fundamentally changed lots for hundreds of years. Now, if it's a nightmare for employers, we all know it's a nightmare for employees. So if you consider currently 1/3 of workers in the UK are living paycheck to paycheck. That rises to 50% in the US and also half of people in Canada. These are developed nations with a large percentage of their workforce living paycheck to paycheck. So what do you do if your car breaks down? What do you do if you have unexpected bills? What do you do if school uniforms happen to cost more than you thought they would? You know, and you can't stretch to the end of the month. What do you do? Do you take out a payday loan or some other debt instrument? You know, do you take in the high interest rates and just fall into that vicious cycle? No, we shouldn't have to. Now, then consider that, say, a lot of these workers living paycheck to paycheck might also be migrant workers who've had to move abroad to find opportunity to support their family, who presumably, if they're there living paycheck to paycheck, their family might be living hand to mouth in an even more dire situation. And not only are they waiting till the end of the month, and where they're risking, say, the employee getting paid late or getting paid the wrong amount, they might have to wait an extra week for a remittance service to process that payment, minus the large fee that they tend to subtract, which with today's technology, this really doesn't have to be an issue. So what are today's technology? Now, we have blockchains and we have smart contracts. Now, plain and simply, a blockchain is the realization of triple entry accounting. When I say this, typically in usual accounting systems, we have a party, we have a counterparty, and then there might be a third party like a bank or another financial institution who sits in the middle, processes the transaction, bears witness to the transaction, and is almost this objective record holder who says, yes, these two people have had a transaction. Now, with a blockchain, there doesn't need to be 3 ledgers recording things. That's inefficient. We don't need to anymore. We can move that into one single ledger, which creates a much more secure, decentralized system everyone's got access to that, everyone's got the exact same information, it's immutable, so you know that it hasn't been tampered with, and there's no dispute over what that's providing. So for businesses, that's going to greatly improve their efficiency and reduce the times and costs associated around all transactions happening on this accounting ledger. Now, the second element is smart contracts. So the Etch platform is built on the Ethereum blockchain, which means we can take advantage of smart contracts. Now, a smart contract is essentially programmable money. Now, when I say programmable money, I mean we're taking a unit of value which can have conditions programmed to it, which will mean that upon these conditions being met, that unit of value can be transacted. So that's how we get to the real-time wages and remittance. That's how we get to the streaming of wages and remittance. Now, think about this. What happens when we begin to stream wages and remittances? So for a comparative example, how many people here still rent DVDs as opposed to streaming movies on Netflix? How many people here, say, download MP3s as opposed to streaming music on Spotify? How many people here use YouTube at all? So streaming services are absolutely they're transforming the landscape of how we do things, and being able to stream wages and remittances in this way is a much more fundamental issue to solve than what we're doing with content and entertainment. So here I'd like to bring you on to our technology roadmap. Now, we've actually just been running our first pilot of this software at a construction site in Oxford. Now, our minimum viable product as such, the first pilot that's been run, is simply having the automated straight-through payroll processing working, paying the wages in real time, along with a web interface with which employers can access this and set up their work site. And as I said, this is what's been running in our first pilot. Now, in addition to that, we'll then set up Etch Pay cards. So we've actually agreed terms with a card processor, so that when wages get paid to these Etch cards, when the employee or potentially the employee's family member is making payments on these cards, they're getting paid some of this processing fee back, because we're reducing unnecessary middlemen and layers of inefficiency that make this possible. Not only that, we also want to split that fee with the employer too, so that effectively, by using this system, the employees earning slightly more than what their wage should be, and the employers paying slightly less. And we've cut out anyone who didn't really need to be there, and we're getting the money to people exactly when they need it in real time. Now, the second phase of our implementation as such will involve creating a mobile interface which the employees can access and have a greater view of their finances, be able to see literally the pennies drop into their account second by second, potentially put this into other budgeting accounts if they don't trust themselves to rush off to the pub as soon as they've been paid. Which don't get me wrong, it can be great if you're going into work Monday morning, dead broke, and there's money in your account to buy lunch. But perhaps not so great if the pub's around the corner and you really can't trust yourself. So that's where we stand with things. Now, going back to the mobile interface. So yeah, we'll also deploy IoT hardware beacons, which can collect workforce information from around a particular site, which will be of great benefit to the employee and the employer for all kinds of insurance and dispute purposes, as well as helping improve employers' ability to take out lines of credit based on increased transparency as to how they're actually using their funds in a business sense. Additionally, the hardware beacons may not even be needed, seeing as mobile phones have an accelerometer, and you can use the geocaching data to record all this information anyway. So you don't even need new technology in that sense. So the third element of our product roadmap is enabling performance-based contracts. So this can work in conjunction to the time-based ones, which is how the wages work in essence. And again, that's just expanding the possibilities and the dynamic of what a working relationship is going to look like moving forward in the future. So I mentioned a minute ago that we've just done our first pilot at a construction site. Now, you might be thinking, well, hang on, what industry is this targeting? payroll is certainly an industry-agnostic subject. Anywhere that there's a site and people being paid, a payroll solution can be implemented there, right? But you can't start that big. You need to start small and then scale up. So we're starting in the construction industries and the building service management industries. Now, this is due to our CEO, Eros, not only being a blockchain expert, but also being an architect and a builder for over 20 years. So we have a wealth of knowledge in that department, in addition to our CTO, Thomas, being, well, a blockchain expert going back to 2009, consulting with many of the world's largest financial institutions, and also happening to sit on the technical committee for the Construction Blockchain Consortium, of which Etch is the first project to actually have been spun out of this consortium in a sense. So it positions us really well within the construction industry to make fast progress in moving this project forward before potentially expanding out into other verticals and internationally. So that's why we're moving forward in the construction industry first. Now, I think ultimately why I'm really excited about this is because there's so much potential for basically creating financial security in people's lives. I mean, you know, what's going to happen when more people's basic needs are met? You're switching your thinking from worrying about, can I keep the light switches on? Am I going to be able to feed myself come the 29th of the month? To be able to suddenly open up your thoughts to considering bigger and bigger problems in the world, in your own life, and who knows, I mean, this is really just the beginning of things. So this sounds like a project that resonates with you and you'd be interested to learn more, then this is our website here. You can find us at etch.work. We're actually currently running a token sale to help continue funding the development of our project. This finishes on the 18th of October. Also, feel free to drop me an email at ben@etch.work, and I'll be floating around afterwards to answer all of your questions. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.